Hello and welcome to MetaNights. I'm Loku, a collector of stories, where we tell your story. Women are often in a passive position in the face of the realities of marriage, and so is today's narrator, Xiang. Before she was 25, she had never been in love and never thought about getting married, but after witnessing the stories of widows and orphans around her, she became afraid that if she never got married, she would end up alone.
I used to study when I thought I was a very independent girl. I think I can not get married and not have children in the future, kind of. Later, after these things happened, when I looked up my 25-year-old and one of my girlfriends wrote a letter to each other at the age of 25, I found that my psychological state was so afraid of ending up alone, so afraid of being alone, and then from that time I was very active, always quite active in dating, that is, parents or proposed how. I'm actually not much of a blind date, but I've seen no less than 10 of them anyway. I was impressed by 3 or 4 of them, and this had a little influence on my later choice of this person. The first one is the university teacher. I think he has a very lewd temperament. He looks very ugly, height 1.68 m, weight 90 kilograms, kind of, although he is a teacher of art in the university, but I think he is standing next to you or he pulls your hand when you really feel like a pile of fat hanging on your body, that kind of feeling from the inside and out to exude that lewd temperament. Then this person is the second meeting or the third meeting. He sent me home when I was ready to get out of the car. He pulled me not allowed to go and then said a kiss to go, and then I did not agree with him. The next day he asked me to dinner, and then the next day I went to see him when I sat in the restaurant and waited for him, and without saying anything he walked in and grabbed me and kissed me. At that time I was in a state of confusion, and if it was now I would have given him 2 slaps and I left. Later he may know that I have not had any experience in sex life. He will send me the knowledge of sex life kind of radio to me, but also asked me if I am sexually indifferent and so on, and then he may also feel that I am not so casual girl. He slowly faded. In addition, I was impressed by the traditional conditions of a very good education, or also in the bank work. The whole temperament and knowledge are very good. The first meeting is so the result of the second, third, you will feel that this person is still not quite right. He will be a variety of reveal to you which married women he has slept with, and then slowly this person is also in later met twice after the fade. Then it was the year before last, and that time was already very depressing because first I was also older. At that time, I was already 27 or 28 years old, and there was really no one in my life who could make me shine. In fact, public opinion is under great pressure. I had an illness at that time, and I had a cyst on top of my ovary called a chocolate cyst. All doctors will tell you that this disease does not need to be treated. You can get pregnant right away. Where do I go to get pregnant?
The reason why the doctor said that the cyst can be cured by getting pregnant right away is because the cause of the cyst is related to a woman's menstruation. If the patient's cyst is not large, then she will not have a period for about a year after she gets pregnant.
The doctor said the same thing, saying you'd better take 6 months off to get pregnant and get married soon. It's not that the people around you are forcing you, but the case I was discharged from the hospital says that it is recommended to get married and have children as soon as possible, Because the disease is very easy to recur, I must get married and have children within 6 months, or else I will have to play the kind of androgen injection every month for 3 to 6 months without menstruation. At that time I felt that my life had simply gone to the bottom of the kind of feeling.
At the age of 28, she desperately wanted to get married. On the one hand, she wanted to get pregnant as soon as possible to get rid of hormone therapy, but more importantly, after more than 10 failed blind dates, she really didn't want to spend any more time.
The first time I met him was at night. I did not think to meet him that day. I was at home to take care of myself and went up to wash my hair, and then he said he wanted me to watch a movie. It was winter. I asked him to go indoors or some kind of tea house or kind of place to sit and drink tea and talk. I said let him go there and wait for me. But he had to wait for me in the open air, and then when I first saw him, I had a good impression that he was a police officer, especially upright and straight, a tall, upright boy standing there, waiting for you. When I arrived, they took me inside the house and gave me something warm to drink. After we met for the first time, we came back and told my mom how there were such nice people, and we felt so fake, I have seen so many people in the external conditions look the best. One is I was feeling very much like the hero of the film. And then the height of 1.78 meters, very good body, and then there is no bad hobby, not smoking, not drinking, not playing games, not playing cards, usually like to work out, not any hands and feet or like those boys before I feel so disgusting, not at all. The third and fourth time I suddenly proposed because I was very anxious. I told him that I said we were dating and in love, or we would discuss marriage. He also felt very happy and gave me a card of 20,000 yuan when he didn't get the certificate. He said he only had so much cash on hand and said how much he would give me every month afterwards and let me prepare for the wedding. She had 3 daughters and gave birth to him, and the 4th had a son. His mother seems to be 40 years old before he was born or something. He is also more than 30 years old. His mother every day to his father is old, such reasons to force him to marry. He called me one day and said he had a good friend who worked in a hospital and had a child who had a lot of daughters and didn't want to raise the child and asked me if I wanted to adopt the child. He said he wanted us to adopt the child. I thought it was strange that I wouldn't agree or sign because we weren't married and we had never had a child, so why would I want to adopt one? But what he said was that his mother was old, and the family had always thought that there were many, many reasons. But I asked him, I said it's because you can't? You can't have children? Then he pulled the plug and never mentioned it again, and he told me that his mother despises girls who live together before marriage. I had the non-menstrual injection at that time and I happened to go to Hong Kong for the HPV vaccination at that time, so I didn't pay too much attention to whether or not I was having intercourse and whether or not he was interested in me. Anyway, after everything happened, I was thinking about these very wrong places and I realized what they meant, but at that time I thought he was a very decent person with very strict parents and didn't think much about it. The honeymoon week, he was taking good care of me, but then we came back to the wedding. Leave is not over. He said he went to work overtime. And then the next day I went home to pack those things, and then in the closet found a lot of bags. Then I opened a look. Inside is a packet of condoms, rare version of Jasper's, and a bottle of something like essential oil. Turned out to open inside is a white like a pill in it, and then I looked up on the internet that thing called Rush. At that time I searched for this next to what men gay kind of concept words came out. I felt like a thunderbolt struck me. The soul scattered and godless really is the kind of feeling that the soul is scattered. Suddenly realized that all those things that were not right before was what happened. His mother and I tidied up the room together. At that time I opened those things in front of his mother, and then I asked his mother what these things were and who they belonged to. His mother did not understand, and then I told him that this is a condom. Then his mother told me that he told his mother that we had been living together for a long time and that it was not good for me to get pregnant. I asked his mother if his son had ever brought a girl home before. He said no, my son is so well behaved, he is so timid, how can he bring a woman back? Then I said that he has a good relationship with male friends home. Then his mother said that he only worked when there are a few little boys like to bring back on double days. I said that they play late at night, will sleep at home. He said he would sleep at home, I'll sleep with him in his room. At that time, I felt that the thunderstorm was striking me one by one. Later, after reviewing all these things, he was saying different things to everyone about sex and relationships, and he was saying one thing to his mother and one thing to me. He will stop the car and help carry the bag and help peel the shrimp, that kind of. Is that once I appeared we are ready to get married to determine the relationship, he immediately took me to his unit or to meet his friends, but only once. He has a friend and I chatted very well, want to leave my phone number, but he blocked from these. I later reacted, at the time did not care about these details. When he came back, I was hoping to hear some kind of explanation, but no, he just kept watching those funny videos on his phone to avoid the whole thing. I put it on the bedside table and he said it wasn't his. I didn't sleep that night, and it was the first time I knew what it was like to be in that kind of mood, where you can't eat anything, and you have vomiting and diarrhea all night long, even if you drink water. And then I searched the internet for some related to the situation of some posting all what then each one is right more and more like. His computer didn't have a password, so I opened his computer, and then I went through his transaction history, and he buys about 50 condoms every 6 to 7 months. The most recent one is the family used the rest of the day I went to meet his parents bought 50 only 10 left. I also took a picture and then after I found his transaction history, I let him see it for himself, but he said he used it with his ex-girlfriend. Then I laughed a little because the date of manufacture of that thing was after he broke up with his ex-girlfriend. And then when I said the bug, he stopped talking about it and then he never mentioned it again. As soon as he was asked about the problem, he started to talk about it, and then he disappeared for about a month, saying he would solve the problem. What he told my father was that he went for a medical examination and used the medical report to prove his innocence, but I don't know what the medical report can prove. When I found out about the transactions, my mom and dad came to pick me up, and my mom kept an eye on me and wouldn't let me sleep by myself at night anyway. But I laughed when I knew that my mother might be afraid of my suicide or self-harm behavior. But I did feel very depressed during that time, although I did not have any suicidal thoughts and I knew very firmly that if I were to divorce, there would be no room for reprieve, but I still felt very unhappy. I had a birthday and my aunts found me at home and my husband didn't spend it with me and then my mom told them about it. Those aunts went to him and called him and said if you don't come out and get a divorce, we'll go to your office to look for you. And he was afraid that these things would get out and he was afraid that everyone would know who he was, and then he gave us his duty roster and told us to pick a day. Then the day after he finished his shift, he said he would go with us that day to get a divorce certificate. The day before the divorce, his mother called me and I told him that your son doesn't like women and you don't know that he likes men's asses and not women's breasts. His mother still wants to discipline the students in school like before, saying that I let him go home after work every day. I said after tomorrow that is your family's own business. By the time my divorce was finalized, I asked him why he was lying to me so as not to anger him until he had signed the papers and all the paperwork was done. He knew a lot of the lies he told, and I asked his mother a lot of questions, and he found that he couldn't get it right because he was telling different lies to both sides. And then he ran away from the Civil Affairs Bureau. The back is the last I saw of his appearance, right? And then I not only looked at these people who had the same experience on the internet, but I had to consult a friend who was also of this sexual orientation. He told me a lot about the guys in their circle who had been married and then came out to look for them after they got married. He is actually guilty of his own feeling that he will certainly not get married and cannot live that kind of cover-up to cover up the life. I met this person. I think he is also quite tired is that he opened his eyes every day to everyone is a different set of lies. I think this he is so tired but he still want to continue to play this way. Speaking of normal, I thought of my mother the other night, saying that life is so good now. Why does he not want to live a normal life? At that time I laughed a little. I told her that in fact he came to get married for him. That is the abnormal life, right? After the divorce I relaxed a lot and no longer afraid to die alone. As for the marriage thing is no longer forced to follow the fate of the good.
You're watching MetaNights, and I'm Anchor Loku. Thank you for listening and we will see you next time.